Cam, I think that Baylor basketball might be the most March Madness fraudulent team in the Big 12. And the reason being, the defensive performances have been lackluster. This reminds me a lot of the last couple of Baylor teams. When we talk March Madness squads, like a BYU going into this whose defense is not exactly lauded, a Houston whose defense is, I think about staying power. Which of these teams can compete the deepest in March, who might not be the number one team in the Big 12? Texas Tech played so well in the regular season. I think TCU will go further in March. For Baylor, the offense has been there. The defense has given me, this will go great until you run into a Big East team like Marquette and you get slammed. I fear that is going to be the fate of the Baylor Bears. They might be, to me, if I had to deduce to one team the biggest March Madness fraud, I don't know if Baylor gets out of the first weekend if they meet a physical opponent.
The biggest one in the Big 12? Biggest fraud?
There are 10 teams to select from that could make it to March here, so you got a lot of teams to choose, but I believe that the offset between offense and defense is tough for me to get past based on Cam, Josh Payton here, based on what I've seen the last 2 seasons from Baylor basketball when the defense fell apart or they weren't physical enough in March.
Okay, so I know you watched the game against BYU.
Yep.
Were you not watching before that, like the last 5 games?
The very good 5 games.
Where they played some really good defense. Okay, you look at the box score and you'll see West Virginia got 81 points. But if you watch that game, they had like 15 in the last 3 minutes because Baylor took the foot off.
And by the way, I thought Baylor was the much more physical team in that game, which surprised me a bit. You don't see West Virginia out physicality'd in Morgantown often.
And then the 3 games before that, they held teams under 65 points.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but I've watched every game of this team. I think the last game against BYU was an aberration. It was not that, they deserved to win. They didn't, but I just don't think that was the team that we have seen the last month, and we have seen what this team can do. And now I go back to last year to go off your point, because we were both saying that this was not a team that was poised for a deep run. And lo and behold, we were both right. But I see just such a better makeup of this team than last year. I mean, that team in 23, they couldn't do anything in the paint on either end of the court. They were a poor man's version of this year's BYU team. They shot a high volume of threes going outside in, not inside out. And they just had so many deficiencies that you were right. If they played a physical team, they were going to get their doors blown off. Exhibit A, playing Iowa State. They played them 3 times last year. They lost 3 times. I don't think that is the case for this team. I think they can, like you said, against West Virginia, they can out physical teams. They have much more of a scoring threat in the paint. I mean, the best scoring threat they've had in the paint in a while, actually, even going back before that national championship team. Of course, that one was, a lot better at a lot of other things. But I think this is too versatile an offense to be the most fraudulent March Madness team. Now, does that mean they automatically go to the Sweet 16? No, because you never know with these matchups in a 1-game elimination. They could run into a buzzsaw or at least a bad matchup in the second round and not get there.
Anybody in the Big East.
Big East, though, it's not as good as it's been.
Like a Creighton.
Like it's really those 3 teams at the top, right? I mean, it's
yeah. I mean, if
it's UConn, Marquette, and Creighton.
Yeah, but somebody else sneaks in there. My thing here is, like, Alabama is the number 1 team in the country offensively, and they're number 6 in Ken Palm overall. I think, if I remember correctly, my notes here, 6. 72nd defensively. I think Alabama will struggle in the postseason because their defense is lackluster compared to their offense, especially. Baylor's 85th in the country defensively per the analytics, whereas teams like BYU, Texas, TCU, who you wouldn't necessarily consider to be defensive juggernauts, are top 60, much less 85th. Even BYU, 20 points ahead of Baylor, 30 points almost ahead of Baylor here. So if you're going to pick a team that you think is the most potentially fraudulent in March, who would it be for you?
Okay, Boomer.
Say it. No way. Actually?
Oklahoma. Yes.
Texas was low-hanging fruit for you here.
Yeah, well,
it feels like they're both low-hanging fruit, but yes.
Because I originally, when you posed this question, I thought Texas, straight away. And it looks like after both have had some doubts this year, Oklahoma more recently, Texas more at the beginning of the conference schedule, they're both going to be in the tournament.
Somehow, why are we valuing them so much? I don't know. It makes no sense.
But I'll tell you why I like Texas a little bit more. Like if Texas goes out in the first round, I'm honestly not going to be all that shocked because they love doing that. But I think they have a good enough defensive team, and they've got shot makers, which they didn't have on those Shaka Smart teams. They had some lottery picks, some big guys. Yeah. Jared Allen is the one that comes to mind, Jackson Hayes. But they just didn't have like guys who could shorten the game down the stretch and give you good looks on the offensive end no matter what. They've got A. Smith, they've got Hunter, and I still really like Dylan Dessou. I know that's not a hot take, but I like
Hey, what about the Weaver kid with the hairline? You didn't mention him.
I love him as a player. I don't know that he's like a create your shot guy, but
no, he's not. But he plays hard. I'll give him that.
Yeah, he makes a lot of little things happen. Now I look at Oklahoma, and to your point about Baylor, Oklahoma is a good defensive team. They are. I think they're top 5 in
with a very experienced March Madness coach.
Yeah, but I just don't.
Yeah, like, he's been to the Final Four.
Yes, he has. I think he's a bit overrated in his job at Oklahoma that he's done the last couple of years, to be honest with you. Okay. But I'm looking at the who's the guy for Oklahoma. I just don't know. Yeah, they have one guy in the top 20 in the conference in scoring, which, is it the end all be all? No, but you need to have all the other teams that are poised to make deep runs have 2 or 3 guys on that list. Mm-hmm. And then I look at offensive rebounding, which is always a good Baylor trait. It was not a good trait for them, or it didn't go well for them against BYU. Mm-hmm. And in the Big 12, Oklahoma's 11th in offensive rebounds and 10th in 3-point percentage. Every freaking year, we see the teams that go far and win national championships on second chance points and mostly second chance threes. The best play, the best strategy in the tournament is offensive rebound, kick out 3. They're not very good at that. They're 10th in assist to turnovers, 11th in turnover margin, and every team below them in all those categories I just listed are not tournament teams. They're scrappy. They play good defense. I just don't see them going far in the tournament. And it does help, yes, that the one game I've seen them live this year, they got blown out. They got curb stomped by Baylor. They were never in that game. They had no answer for a zone defense.
I think Oklahoma is overrated. I think Texas is overrated as well. I'm not sure if anybody really pushed back on either of those. Maybe that's why I default to Baylor as being, I view it as there are really 6 teams maybe that are pure March Madness teams out of the Big 12. There will be 10 that make it, but obviously 4 of them are going to lose in the first or second round here.
I think what you're more thinking of is Baylor will be the biggest disappointment.
Yeah, that's probably a better way to
because they'll be
it.
A 3 seed.
And maybe that's why I go fraud here, just because there will be people who put Baylor in the Final Four in their brackets. And I just, again, I don't. The defense is not where it was, which that defense was not a Ken Palm darling in 2021.
No,
either,
it was not. People kind of forget that.
Yeah, how great it was the eye test.
Next year was fantastic.
But a lot better than 85th in the country.
Yes,
we'll throw that one.
Yeah. I think they were top. I think they were 27th or 28th or something like that.
The ball is tipped. There you are. 5 more games. I'm running for your life. You're a shooting star. You can't listen to the song once March Madness starts. So get it in now. Put it in now. Put it in right now. And let it wet your whistle. That's all I gotta say. Because we're coming up. We're getting close. That's Cameron Stuart. At Real Cam Stewart for bad tweets on the Bird app. This has been, it always will be. Thanks, Cam.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Locked on. Thanks for making it your first listen every single day. Say